Let's give it 2 taps.
Tap.
Tap. And then you're gonna, in your mind, you're gonna tap the noodle again, but I'm gonna move it out of your way. You're gonna swing through. So up to the top, swing through. There you go.
All right, mate, so keeping with the theme of players who tend to come a little bit over the top, and we talked about in our previous videos, we've got some great drills for players to kind of work on that body motion as such.
Right.
Let's talk about the shaft, right?
Yeah.
And an outcome-based feedback feel drill that you've got to help players who might have the very typical motion where you see the club head goes around the body and then comes back over. We see it 90% of golfers, correct?
Yeah, we see it a lot for sure. And as you just kind of demonstrated there, the club gets in behind the plane, it gets really flat. And now at some point we've got to try and get this back on plane. So there's going to be some compensation to the top of the swing, generally like some kind of lifting, some kind of steepening of the shaft, which generally then is going to be carried into the downswing.
Oh yeah, don't we know.
Seen it many times before, yeah. So one of the things we can do here, we use these noodles a lot. If you want to take your setup there, first thing we're going to do is kind of get the takeaway a little more on plane. So I'm just going to hold this kind of underneath the shaft plane at address. The incorrect move would be going underneath. So maybe demonstrate that. Yeah, you can see that's low, flat. And then we're going to recorrect somewhere during the swing. It's going to get us over the top. Okay.
Yeah. I would, what I want you to do is just hold that noodle maybe about level with the ground here. Because I think when we take away the tilting component of the golf swing and we actually stand on a horizontal plane, it really simplifies this motion, right? So let's say that you were instructed to hit this golf ball from a level plane here, flat with the ground. Theoretically, and as a simplification, you would want to swing it relatively flat and then come back through relatively flat.
Right.
If I was to tilt from the hips in the golf swing, that would be a relatively on-plane swing and come down relatively on-plane.
Right.
Now, the pattern that we were just talking about there from this horizontal plane would be that the player would tend to swing underneath.
Correct.
Right. Now, you would never try and play baseball doing that, would you? Right. So you come underneath, which if I bend now from the hips, we see this often. And then as a result of doing so, well, I can't hit the ball. So I'm going to then try and make this compensation, coupled with the fact that the ball's on the ground, hand-eye coordination, keep the head down. We see a lot of players do this number.
Absolutely.
Right? So the feedback drill that you're giving us with the red noodle there and the takeaway, what that simply allows us to do is create this more on-plane golf swing back by this stage, which is important just for consistency and deliverability, correct?
Sure, yeah. Now that's only part of the equation, right? Because we had this pattern that regardless of what we're doing going back, we had this pattern from here of over the top. So now we have to add the kind of next trigger or the next thought, which will allow us to get this, let's call it shallower or a little more from the inside. So if you want to take your setup again there, so we're going to do a rehearsal. Your job is keeping the club above the red noodle, all the way to the top. And now you're just going to tap this blue noodle back here. So you're going to start, exactly, yes sir, up to the top again.
Now when we do that, I'm not trying to just pull my arms behind me, am I?
Correct, no.
Okay,
and obviously we start with the lower body. So there's a shift and turn.
Now you say start with the lower body. What is going to happen naturally when players do this is that will occur because that's how you create space. If you jump back down there again, if I get to, making you do some work, aren't I? So if I get back to here, right, and I just do this, it just feels horrible. Like I'm casting, I've got no movement. What happens here, using Mike's term that he used before, was passive arms. Getting here with passive arms, how do I hit that noodle? And you'll see that I'm not bringing my arms down intentionally, right? What I'm doing is I'm setting them into a position at the top of my swing as I recenter and shift my pressure. I would say a great reference is the ball of the lead foot. The club itself will then start to come down.
Right.
Right, great. So from the address, we're going up.
Let's give it 2 taps.
Tap.
And then you're going to, in your mind, you're going to tap the noodle again, but I'm going to move it out of your way. You're going to swing through. So up to the top, swing through. There you go.
Yeah, wow. Felt like I had so much room out to the right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just relating quickly to a previous video we did, the separation between those, we started getting some nice length to the arms. The distance between the end of the handle and the body was greater rather than this old move here.
Exactly, that'd be a good one to watch for sure.
Okay, so when you're getting down on your knee, not proposing but helping me with my swing here, you do this a lot with your players, right?
Yes.
And how would they set this up at home?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is something like, once you've done that a few times, like you can lay this on the ground and kind of visualize it in the back of your mind.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Perfect.
keeping the club above, the red on the way back, feel like you're tapping the blue on the way down.
And I just want to quickly just talk about, in terms of making sure your practice is effective and efficient, right? Is that when it comes to this movement pattern, that if we can see something big and visual like this red noodle and this blue noodle, well, it's in my peripheral. Whereas if I go, oh, I'm just going to feel it a little bit, more than likely players aren't going to exaggerate it enough to make a long-term change, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if it was that easy, there wouldn't be any training aids, there wouldn't be any pull noodles, you know?
Yeah. This is the snake oil, right?
Right.
So as we come back, right, from the address position, we're trying to feel almost the tracking of the club head. And that's a great placement. I'm going to say that's about a foot inside where the golf ball is as a reference. And by this stage, if I visually try and keep that club head outside of that red line by allowing my body to turn, well, bang, now we're perfectly on plane.
Right.
Then on the way to the top, and then I would say get players to stop here. I would say try and get this club head visually well outside that blue noodle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an exaggeration, right? And that's what we want to overcorrect when we're training, right? But exactly.
So I'm going to do that again. So outside and then on, as if I'm tapping it. Let's do it again. Outside and then on. And then I'm going to clip a little one down there. We're going to see that my path and swing direction will be a little bit to the right here. So if we're having a look at that nice little drawback online.
Yeah.
We can see the path is 10 degrees out to the right, the face is 5, which gives us this nice little draw bias back to the ball there.
Nice ratio.
Now, if I was to then instantly go back into a full shot because, I've got it, what's going to happen with the average amateur golfer?
I'm going to go right back to the old swing, right? Yeah. So, this like kind of low speed training at first, getting a feel of the positions, then kind of incorporating, okay, maybe a 50% swing, gradually going up. You might only be able to get to 70% until it goes back the other way, then bring it back down, and then kind of keep working it back up. And as soon as you get to like a stumbling point, which might be 2 or 3 shots that are moving in the wrong direction, straight back down again and then build it up.
And I would say your association with what creates speed in the golf swing, number 1, and then how to hit powerful shots, number 2, is going to change. Because for a lot of players, it is a powerful movement to unwind that upper body. Whereas that is just using the body to try and create speed and not the one thing that hits it, which is the golf club.
Yeah.
Versus what we're doing here, we're training you to allow the body to be in a position where at the moment of impact, the club is the tool that's creating the speed.
Exactly. I mean, it's just like if you were throwing, right? Throwing, the last thing to go is the hand. This is the last thing. Everything else has done all the work. You've shifted, you've rotated. Yeah. This thing goes last. Yeah. And if we use our upper body a lot in our everyday lives, so we tend to do that in our golf swing because ball's sitting on the ground, we're not reacting to it, right?
Correct.
But if we were to look at any other athletic motion, hitting a tennis shot, we're stepping to the target.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to incorporate here.
Yeah, great. And the thing I love about this is it brings some real sort of not only visual, but also the kinesthetic feel element of what it's like to get that golf club moving behind you, especially if you can set it up on a little tripod or something similar where you can actually clip it. So you get yourself into a position, the club head tracks slightly out, then as at the top of the swing, as you shift your body back, if you have some little feedback here that you set it up on a bit of an angle into the ground, we just tap that a couple of times and then just try and miss it. Well, then before you know it, if you filmed that, you might feel that you're going to hit that, but if you're an over-the-topper, you're probably still out there.
Exactly, yeah.
So that visual feedback just helps a lot.
For sure.
But mate, looking at that, we can see the path right, slightly down on the ball, club face left, little draw.
Nice.